Our guest on This is America and the World is Ambassador Jeremiah C. Sulunteh. Ambassador Sulunteh is the ambassador from the Republic of Liberia to the United States. Before his posting in the United States, the ambassador formerly served as Liberia's Minister of Transport, Minister of Post and Telecommunications, and Minister of Labor. Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm very glad to be here, Dennis. Thank you.
You've just come from an event at the White House. Tell me a little bit about it. Who was there and what was the event?
Well, I was able to be part of many ambassadors accredited to Washington to honor the reception hosted by President Obama. Many of the ambassadors are new. Some of them are old people, or in terms of the assignment, and it was an excitement. President Obama welcomed all of these countries that are represented here, but one key thing he talked about was this incident that took place in France, which he encouraged everyone to stand together to fight this, no matter where it takes place. And secondly, he wanted to thank all of the ambassadors accredited to Washington for the kind of representation and the partnership that different countries have with the United States.
There are, I think, about 180 embassies here in Washington, D.C.?
Yes, I think it's a little bit more than that.
Is that right?
I think there should be 190.
Wow.
African ambassadors, we have 54. You know, so it's an amazing thing.
You've just returned from Liberia. Huh?
Yeah.
What's happening in Liberia that we should know about?
Well, Dennis, let me say that I was part of the advance team for Michelle Obama's trip to Liberia. She had gone to launch the Let Girls Learn project, and she went with her two daughters and her mom. It was so exciting. So I was privileged as the ambassador to be part of that team to go ahead and prepare for her coming. Liberians could not wait to see Michelle and the two girls, and it was an awakening moment for Liberian girls to see these two beautiful American young ladies that could be role model for some of our young kids coming out. So it was a good thing. And then also stay there after Michelle's visit to visit with family, friends, and see the political party that I belong to was having convention, and I had to be part of that. So, and I just returned yesterday. Very nice.
Well, thank you for coming on. You have to be tired from long travel. What would be if someone wanted to go to Liberia? How would they fly? What would be the route?
Well, prior to the Ebola crisis, Delta was flying from Atlanta direct to Liberia. Unfortunately, that discontinued. So currently, one has to travel through Europe, Brussels, Liberia, or sometimes through Accra, Ghana, into Liberia. You have to prepare for a 24 hours travel time.
Whoa. What is the story on the Ebola crisis now in Liberia?
Well, we once again, we are very thankful to the American people and the government, the people of the great United States for the support. There was this outpouring support from the United States that had us to deal with the Ebola crisis. Today, Liberia is free of Ebola, and which we remain grateful to the United States and the international community. Currently, the capacity of our nurses and doctors are so much improved that if there was any outbreak, they would be able to detect, to be able to control that, as compared to what happened 2 years ago when we didn't even know what Ebola was, what was the difference between Ebola and malaria. Today we have the capacity to be able to detect that, and so we are very grateful.
We're going to put a map on the screen and tell us, so we get a fix on Liberia.
Okay.
And different than Libya, huh?
Yes, it's different from Libya.
We should make that very clear. But tell us a little bit about the surrounding countries, the geography, the topography of Liberia.
Liberia is a small country in West Africa, neighboring Sierra Leone, Guinea in the north, Cote d'Ivoire in the southeast, and the Atlantic Ocean on the west. It has a population of 4.1 million.
As we were sitting down, you were saying, is it now the rainy season?
Yeah.
What does that look like? What does the rainy season look like, and how does that impact the country?
Well, we have two seasons in Liberia.
Uh-huh.
We got dry season and rain season.
Okay.
The rain season starts from April to October.
Okay.
Since April, it's raining 5-6 days a week.
Whoa!
Every day you have rain. Sometimes maybe 6-10 inches
Oh, my
of
Lord.
rain. Recently we had a flood incident where the road to the international airport was blocked, and people traveling to the airport had to detour.
Whoa.
So we have a lot of rain. Like I said, Liberia has about 43% of the Guinea rainforest in West Africa. So we get a lot of rainfall. So we have good soil for agriculture. We don't need irrigation system because we get natural rainfall. And in fact, most families who don't have access to pipe-borne water usually collect a lot of rainwater for cooking, for daily living.
Did that rain affect Michelle Obama's trip and the girls' trip there?
I think the traditional leaders played their role so well that this happened when Michelle left. So
the skies parted, right?
It was sunny.
Oh, is that right?
The very day she left, then that night the rain came down.
Oh, they left and the rains came down.
So, yeah.
Let me take a little break, Ambassador. Sulunteh is the name. Sulunteh?
Yeah.
Ambassador Jeremiah Sulunteh, who is the ambassador from the Republic of Liberia to the United States. We're thrilled to have him here. And I don't want anybody to go away as some credits may play, because on the other side, you're going to learn about this fantastic relationship between Liberia and the United States. It is absolutely astounding. Sit tight. This is America and the World. This is America and the World is brought to you by the National Education Association, the U.S.-China Education Trust, and F.Y. Chang Foundation, guided by Ambassador Julia Chang Block, President. The League of Arab States, representing 350 million people in 22 member countries. Japan, history, hospitality, and advanced technology. Sharing tomorrow. Tourism, Malaysia. The Petroleum Group, expertise with integrity in the fields of oil and gas, exploration and production, energy, and infrastructure. The Rotondaro Family Trust. The Embassy Series, uniting people through musical diplomacy, presenting international artists in diplomatic settings. And Ventana Productions, television facilities, editing, and distribution services. Mr. Ambassador, talking about the relationship between Liberia and the United States, just the translation, meaning Liberia, land of freedom, which sounds so much like our country's approach, but the flag is so similar. English is the spoken language. And then also the U.S. dollar is in play there. And then the Constitution and the way the country is set up. Let's go back and give us a lesson in history, because and take as much time as you need to tell us about ACS, the organization, the American Colonial Association, who was involved, how it was set up, and how it plays into the founding of Liberia?
Well, thank you, Dennis. When I went to school, by the way, I started school at the age of 10 because there were no schools in the village community where I was born. So I didn't start kindergarten until I was 10 years old. Ooh. So what I learned in school, what my history teacher told me, was this little country, Liberia, was one of the safest areas that when the American government decided to set slaves free, they needed a home in Africa where they could return to. It did not mean that those slaves that were returning necessarily originated from Liberia, no. But that was a land that the American Colonization Society, ACS, was able to found as a place that these free slaves could return. And in the 1816, the group sailed to West Africa. My understanding is they went first to Sierra Leone, and there were a lot of the weather condition with the hot weather and a lot of mosquitoes, and people were dying. So a good number of the free slaves sailed down south from Sierra Leone, went down south, closer to the Atlantic Ocean. So they found this place called Providence Island. Providence Island is a historic site in Liberia today, in the city of Monrovia. So they founded this country, a colony called Monrovia, called Liberia, which means the land of the free. And you know, Thomas Buchanan was one of those. General Goodwill Harbor was one of those that led the voyage to found this place. So they settled down, even though from the beginning they had some problem with the tribal chiefs because they didn't understand what was happening.
So they get Americans going back.
Yes, the Americans. So they fought for some time, but then later on they settled down. And they named this piece of land Liberia, which means the free of the land, and established a colony and named the capital Monrovia after James Monroe, the then president of the United States, James Monroe. So the capital city is called Monrovia after James Monroe.
Because I understand that Lincoln and James Monroe and Henry Clay, they all thought that this was a good idea. Huh?
In fact, there's a colony called Clay Ashland after Henry Clay.
Ah.
Yes. The writer for your national anthem was very instrumental in that, you know, the expedition. In fact, the Constitution of Liberia was written at Harvard University.
Is that right?
Yes. The first person who became governor for that colony, Joseph Jenkins Roberts, was born in Virginia.
Isn't that something?
Yes.
And that's 1847 or 8, 47 or 8.
Yeah, 1847, they established the Republic. July 26th, so in 2 weeks' time, our country will be turning 169 years of independence. So they hosted a flag on August 24th, declaring a state, a republic. And Joseph Jenkins Roberts became the first president. And since then, the first 10 presidents of Liberia were African Americans. Stephen Allen Benson was born in Baltimore. You know, I could go on naming them.
So if I understand correctly from research, maybe about 15,000 either freed black slaves or born free go, and then maybe 3,500 from Caribbean countries as well.
Yes.
And they are now. Who did they buy the land from someone, or who owned the land?
According to the story, there were some exchanges between the settlers and the chiefs.
Oh,
to get them place for gardening, to settle
it
down.
sounds familiar.
Yes, yes. About 71 free slaves left from a place called Greenville in Mississippi
Yes.
and went down to the southeast of Liberia and established a colony called Sino County, and they named the capital for that county Greenville. So there's a Greenville, and the group of 89 free slaves that left from Maryland,
Yeah.
Baltimore, Maryland, went to the east coast between Liberia and Cote d'Ivoire and established a colony called Maryland. So we
Yeah,
have
they
a
got-
county called Maryland.
And
After-
there's one that they call it Mississippi, right? In
yes,
Greenfield.
yes. And then we have a group, I understand, of 22 that left from Louisiana and went to establish a colony near the capital. So that place is called Louisiana Township today.
Gee.
So if you really look at the history of Liberia, I mean, you see the close connection between Liberia and the United States.
And I gather, I mean, this is a huge jump forward, but during the time of the Second World War,
Yeah.
that the United States and Liberia were very, very closely involved.
Oh, yes. In fact, during the Second World War, the United States had a base in Liberia, and they had airport base where they could refuel to go
yes.
to fight.
Oh,
and
yes,
that
yes, yes.
is the only airport in Liberia today called Roberts International Airport.
Ooh.
When the Second World War was over, then the Pan American Airlines took over the airport. And when I became Minister of Transport before coming to Washington, we helped to rehabilitate that airport. That's the only airport we had. But it goes back from the 1940s when the Americans, in fact, it was during that time, if you follow history, because of the American influence, that Liberia declared war on Germany. Because Liberia was depending on the U.S.
Sure.
In fact, at that time, before the Cold War, the United States had a satellite navigation system in Liberia. We had a telecommunications exchange, and so Liberia had been very strategic to the United States.
In the period of time, and we're doing a little jumping around in history, but in the 20th century, from the maybe like the 1980s through the 2010, really, the election in 2010, just an awful lot of strife in Liberia, civil wars and coups and military and nightmare.
Yeah.
We could spend a lot of time talking about that, but I want to talk about Liberia today, you know?
Yeah.
Woman president, right?
Yeah.
First female president in Africa.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about her, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, right?
Okay. Well, again, we're not going to go back into the history that brought us this far, but Liberia has had some turbulent times. As you know, 1980 we had a coup d'etat, and then later on, Charles Taylor came, and then after Charles Taylor, we had the democratic elections in 2005. And when Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was elected president of that great country, and it was like bringing hope to the Liberian people, coming out of 14 years of strife, killing. It thought that it was time to reconcile the people and bring hope again to the Liberian people. And that history is there. We made a history that the first female president in Africa comes from Liberia. And we also demonstrated to the world that Liberia can be a post-conflict success story. We reconcile the people, try to build the capacity of people. The challenges remain today, but at least we have tried with infrastructure, broken systems, broken infrastructure like energy, roads, water. But Ellen and her government tried to revive that. Today we are talking about bringing electricity back, talk about the roads construction going on. Schools are open where you have about 1.5 million students enrolled in different schools. There have been a lot of maybe a dozen community colleges built in the last 10 years.
Excellent.
So we think Liberia has done its part. Militarily, we have a small standing army of 2,500 with police of not more than 6,000, Coast Guard 300, and immigration not more than 1,300. But Liberia played a critical role in bringing peace to Mali. We sent peacekeeping troops, even though there was a small squad, but we sent peacekeeping troops to Mali to help secure the peace that is desired more. And we thought that was a critical role that Liberia played. Even when Cote d'Ivoire, our neighbor, has some turbulent times, we help to secure the border, we help to bring peace, we help to send traditional leaders to talk with the people to talk peace. We thought that it's not just a matter of producing a female president, but we were bringing regional peace. A small country like Liberia, so we are very proud of that.
What pushes the economy in Liberia?
Well, Liberia has iron ore.
Iron
ore. I don't know, you may be aware of ArcelorMittal, the British steel company, Mittal Steel, is in Liberia doing iron ore. We have Chevron is there doing oil. ExxonMobil is in Liberia doing oil. So we got iron ore, diamond, a little bit of gold.
Palm oil?
A lot of palm oil.
Palm oil. Rubber as well?
Rubber. Firestone started its plantation in Liberia in 1926. And Liberia became the second largest producer of natural rubber in the world after Malaysia. And today, Liberia shipped raw latex to Baltimore, and we ship iron ore, to Hamilton in Canada through ArcelorMittal. But we have a lot of timber.
Timber as well.
A lot of timber. So Liberia has rich resources. I think the issue has been a little bit of management in the past. We brought all of these things, but there are a lot of resources. Like I talk about, in the area of tourism, we have
tourism.
Yes, we have a lot of attractions. We have a park. We have rivers. A lot of area good for surfing, and a lot of Americans go there. Bob Johnson has a whole chain of hotel in Liberia. Bob Johnson from BET.
Okay, yes.
He has a hotel chain in Liberia, so a lot of Americans go. I will be inviting you to come one day to Liberia to see.
That would be a thrill.
Yeah.
That would be a thrill.
Yeah.
What do you see as the relationship between the United States and Liberia today? You mentioned trade, certainly. And also, what do you see as your mission here,
Well, my mission basically had been to just strengthen the already existing relationship between Liberia and the United States. We have enjoyed this from the founding of Liberia. The American people have always supported Liberia, whether it was in the area of education. We have a lot of Peace Corps volunteers teaching math, science, and English in the grade school, in the fundamental foundation schools to get the kids going. The United States has always supported Liberia democratic process, good governance, and they have supported our budgetary process, to build the capacity of our people, whether it's training, the accountants, or whatsoever. They understand with us in every respect, and which we really, really admire. So my coming here as former Minister of Transport, former Minister of Post and Telecom, former Minister of Labor, I didn't know what I was coming to do. But the message that I brought was to strengthen the existing relationship between Liberia and the U.S. in terms of our domestic policy, in terms of the foreign policy, that will bind both of us together as a country. The partnership will bring together, whether it's promoting world peace, whether it's promoting democracy in West Africa, and good governance. That's what we have been doing. At the same time, encouraging trade and investment. You know, our commonality to the whole Liberia and the U.S.
Mr. Ambassador, we're at the end of our time. An honor to have you here, and thank you for the education.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure being here.
For information about This is America and the World, and to watch all of our programs, visit our website, thisisamerica.net, and look for us on Facebook and Twitter. This is America and the World is brought to you by the National Education Association, the U.S.-China Education Trust, and F.Y. Chang Foundation, guided by Ambassador Julia Chang Block, President. The League of Arab States, representing 350 million people in 22 member countries. Japan, history, hospitality, and advanced technology. Sharing tomorrow. Tourism, Malaysia. The Petrolin Group, expertise with integrity in the fields of oil and gas, exploration and production, energy, and infrastructure. The Rotondaro Family Trust. The Embassy Series, uniting people through musical diplomacy, presenting international artists in diplomatic settings. And Ventana Productions, television facilities, editing, and distribution services.